Good afternoon. Welcome to today's SCA webinar. Rob Taylor and I will speak on addressing the leadership gap in the energy industry, 2 case studies with a competency-based approach. Before we start today's webinar, we'd like to ask some polling questions of the audience. So I will share the first polling question. What's your primary discipline? So we should be getting some answers. We have a lot of geoscientists in the audience, quite a few petroleum engineers, a few in the other category. We're still collecting some responses, but the largest is petroleum engineers, it looks like. So I will close and share that. We have geoscientists and petroleum engineers followed by other. So the next polling question is, how many years of full-time experience do you have in the upstream oil and gas industry? So we're starting to get responses. We have quite a few with over 30 years experience. And some in the other categories as well. People are still responding. But it looks like everyone in this group so far has more than 10 years experience. So I'm going to close the poll, share the results. 40% in the 11 to 20 years, 30% in 21 to 30, and 30% over 30 years. So as we start today's webinar, I will remind you that as the audience members, you are muted, but you can ask questions during the presentation using the GoToWebinar question feature, and we will cover the questions at the end of the presentation. Today's talk is addressing the leadership gap in the energy industry, 2 case studies with a competency-based approach. So we'd like to welcome you to SCA's webinar, and I will be speaking today along with my co-author, Rob Taylor. And you know me, I've been moderating our webinar series, so I'm in the role of Vice President of Engineering at SCA. Before that, I worked for Chevron and Anadarko. Rob Taylor is my co-author. He is Vice President of Global Business Development for IHRDC and has had a number of roles in industry, including at Halliburton and Otis. Rob has an MS in Adult and Organizational Learning and a BS in Mechanical Engineering. So today we're going to be talking about 2 case studies. We'll go in more detail about the 2 case studies, but the first one is based on the Daniel J. Tierpach Geoscience Certification Program. We'll tell you more about the survey we did of past participants of that program. And then Rob will present some results from surveys of IHRDC's Emerging Leader Program. And we'll tell you more about that. If you're a regular attendee at SCA's webinar series, you know we have these at least once a month. It looks like we're starting off quickly next year with Rajan Chochki on data analytics for artificial lift in January, followed by Steve Sonnenberg speaking on the geologic perspective of carbon capture, utilization, storage, and another February webinar with Bob Barbet. Top 10 reasons to refrac your organic shale wells with case studies. We have live online classes that are scheduled for the first part of the year. In January, Dr. John Foster will be talking about introduction to data science. With Python, we have Srini Prasad on developing robust production forecasts. We have another class that Srini Prasad will be teaching on maximizing value, and then I have a class on the basics of petroleum engineering. So don't forget to choose SCA for all your training needs as well as consulting, direct hire, projects, studies. So I'm going to switch to a second slide deck so we can start our presentation. So this presentation today that Rob and I will deliver is based on a presentation that we delivered recently at the SPE conference, the annual technical conference and exhibition in Dubai in September. And we wrote a paper entitled A Competency-Based Approach to Addressing the Leadership Gap in the Oil and Gas Industry. And so we're going to expand on that topic. We'll have more than 20 minutes today, so we can give you more information. And we would also refer you to that paper, which you can find in the One Petra Library if you're looking for more information. So SPE has been on a leadership journey over several years, more than a decade. And I'm just going to highlight some of the key milestones in the past few years. In about 2011, SPE launched the Soft Skills Council, and that standing committee for SPE started a process of writing regular articles for our journals. And by 2013, several of us wrote an article in which we showed the different levels of mastery for skills. And we believe that leadership is really an integration soft skill. So that really comes at the highest level of mastery. You learn it throughout your career, but you master it at the highest level. In 2014, SP launched the SP Leadership Academy. By 2015, we saw the development of leadership skills as really being very impactful for young professionals. So that was an important consideration. By 2016, we started to realize the diversity of leadership styles, different cultural, gender-based and cognitive styles. By 2017, we actually changed the name of the Soft Skills Council to the SP Business Management Leadership Committee. So that really showed the emphasis on leadership. Quite remarkable for a professional and technical society. In 2018, the Business Management Leadership Committee conducted surveys showing communication leadership skills were very important to one's career. By 2019, SP President Dr. Tom Blasingame emphasized listen, learn, and lead as you roll into each new assignment. And by 2020, it was shown in surveys that leadership skill development opportunities were being promulgated by SPE sections and student chapters around the world. So this is just a short summary of the journey that we've been on for a technical society. We've really made remarkable progress over the years in leadership programs. So I'm going to turn over the next slide to Rob Taylor. Rob, are you there?
I think you're muted,
Rob, we're not hearing you. You're muted.
Thank you, everybody, for attending, and thank you, Susan, for the introduction. The infographic here displays the key elements of adult learning that we have developed at IHRDC over more than 50 years of working in the global energy industry. The objectives really are to develop competencies. That's the approach that we're taking. We place a lot of emphasis on pre-course learning. This is activities and things that can be taken prior to the actual formal instruction. We believe very strongly in experienced instructors and mentors. And the lecture material really has to be very well defined, crisp and clear, meaningful to the recipients. One of the most important aspects that we've developed at IHRDC for our learning are elements such as action learning with serious business simulation games, the use of powerful case studies, and more recently we have what we call the board games and practical assignments around the international oil and gas value chain. What clients really have been after for a long time, but very much recently is emphasized, is return on investment, the ROI of the training. How can we measure the training? There are many ways to go about approaching this, And so whatever we design, we have to have the idea of assessment and feedback and providing some sort of measurement to the client. The SPE competency management tool is an engagement that IHRDC has with SPE around providing the members of SPE complementary, a way for them to go into the SPE website and use what we call the CMT, or the competency management tool. And this would allow you to take an assessment against a criteria that's aligned to a particular job title. And inside these job titles will be the competencies that are recommended for the job title. This particular example is for leadership, which is the subject of the paper that Susan and I developed. But we want you to know that at the SPE website, there are technical competency models that you can assess yourself to in petroleum engineering, production engineering, drilling, and reservoir. And I think there's even some in geology and geosciences. But this is a service that has taken off really well in the last 3 to 5 years since they've been doing this, and I encourage you to go there. Once you get an assessment result, it will also recommend for you some training intervention that would be applicable to closing any gap that you've identified for yourself. And these are very helpful in your career advancement. This process of learning and development is a well-known process that's available in the industry, but this is the one that we typically deploy when we're trying to set up a system that uses competencies for a basis for identifying the training and providing courses and providing. It doesn't have to be just courses. It could be any type of learning event, attending a webinar or going to a particular trade show, taking a formal course in order to close the gap. And one of the biggest questions we get about this diagram is down where it says reassess. The question we always get is how frequently? When do you reassess? And of course the answer is it's flexible, but sometimes when there's a real immediate need to close a gap for a particular job or a particular event, you may take the training and get reassessed on that particular gap the very next day. Or if it's a company-wide setup event, the company may implement their training program and do reassessment in a 3-month interval or 6-month interval. Getting to a 1-year event is probably too long, but this is the process we use, and it's well known in the industry.
So as we talk about competency-based assessment, we'd like to have you consider the use of career ladders. Many companies develop their own in-house career ladders, and yours may look different from this simple diagram, but most career ladders in upstream oil and gas companies have a technical career ladder and a managerial career ladder. And they may have different titles, but typically they would have 6 or 7 levels. And you may find that your own in-house career ladder has defined competencies for each of these levels. And so when we talk about competency-based assessment or developing leaders based on competency, this is what we're talking about, making sure that you understand the level of the cohort that's being developed and what are their aspirations, to what level do they aspire, so that you can bring in the appropriate training at the appropriate time. So our first case study is based on the Daniel J. Tierpak Geoscience Certification Program. Dan Tierpak was the founder of SCA, and so the program was named after him, but that's a long name, so I will probably refer to it as the boot camp or the GCP as I go throughout this presentation. And this program was developed to begin with to help to deliver what you might call a super school of training classes. So 6 weeks of very intense instruction. Many of SCA's most popular classes are packed into a very rigorous course that's done 5 days a week over 6 weeks. And then the attendees get a chance to demonstrate the skills that they've just learned, to practice and demonstrate the skills. And they are working in teams on a project. And so they have the opportunity to look at seismic, to drill an exploratory well, get the results back, make decisions based on how they're going to develop the field. All this with the help of mentors in working on this project. And although this was developed as a technical class, the first time it was delivered was in 2008. We quickly found that the attendees at the boot camp were also getting soft skills. They were very much engaged in communication, in deliberation, teamwork, all sorts of discussions. They were being mentored. They had a chance to deliver their project results to a team of executives, either from their company or SCA executives. And so all this was very much a soft skills development initiative as well. And so over the years, the course has adapted to embrace that. And we've relied upon the mentors to help us to evolve this. In this photo, you see SCA's chief geologist, Bob Shoup. Looks like they're looking at some logs. So the program is really set up so that it can be delivered in a public class. We can have attendees from all different companies or employers, or it could be delivered in-house. And it has been very popular among companies that have a requirement to develop a national workforce. And so many times we take the boot camp to their office and spend the 6 weeks in their office doing it that way. So in addition to the public offerings, we frequently do an in-house course as well. So when you're thinking about who should attend the boot camp, it was designed initially for geoscientists, but it was quickly realized that there were as much engineering decisions to be made as geoscience decisions. And so now most of our boot camps include a mixed group of technical professionals, geoscientists, engineers, petrophysicists, and oftentimes they're learning commercial skills, things that they may not have learned in school. It gives them really a chance to learn some new business skills as well. When we hold the class in our facility here in Houston, we also schedule in field trips. We take trips to Galveston, about an hour from Houston, and to the Texas Hill Country, about 3 or 4 hours from Houston. So if we're doing this in your facility, we would adapt it to the local outcrops in your part of the world. So here are some highlights of some of the classes that are included. It's 6 weeks of classes, but some of these classes aren't 5-day classes, they may be 1 or 2-day classes. And so they're getting more than 6 classes in the course of 6 weeks. And then the project phase, which follows immediately thereafter, they have a chance to develop those skills, to use the skills, and to demonstrate the skills, and to make presentations based on their analysis. So we surveyed past participants of the program, and as I mentioned, it started back in 2008, so luckily we were still in touch with quite a few of the past participants of the boot camp, and we got a representative sample. We didn't get responses from everyone, but we certainly got responses from every year that the boot camp has been held. And as you can imagine, for those who took it back in 2008, it's been a longer time, so they've had more time to reflect on what they learned and how important, how impactful it was to them. And we asked them about their current job classification, and some of them, of course, have ascended in their career with increasing levels of responsibility. Some of them are supervisors, directors, even executives. But I would say very remarkably, most of them saw the boot camp as a very pivotal event, something that really had an impact. And they were still able to recall, even a dozen years ago, how important it was to their development. So we based a survey on the responses that we had gotten from boot camp participants immediately after they took the course, because we really wanted to probe this development of soft skills, of leadership skills. And so you can see some of the answers to this first set of questions are listed on the screen. A 10 is highlighted in yellow. And so I think you can see, because they're in rank order by the 10s, that teamwork is really the thing that they felt like they came away with the most, the opportunity to exchange ideas and discuss their differences. But a number of other soft skills were included as well in this first question, and very positive results. The majority of them were 10, 9, or 8 in their responses. So certainly this was something that they felt was meaningful, even though this was designed as a technical course. We also had some suggestions from the mentors who delivered this course, the project aspect of the course, to make sure we asked questions that we thought would be relevant. So we tried to look at all the possible soft skills and get some feedback on those that might be listed. Again, teamwork falls at the top of the list, but a number of business management leadership skills, they felt they had good opportunities to develop these. And I think this really demonstrates what Rob was talking about, that a business simulation or a business game really provides the opportunity to demonstrate both technical and non-technical skills. And in some cases, they were very much learning the communication skills that are so important in a technical career. We also got some free-form feedback and a variety of different responses are listed here in this word cloud, but you can see for the most part, they were very positive, great confidence builder, the wonderful course, good rapport, lots of interesting responses in the free-form responses. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate that. The IHRDC Emerging Leaders Program actually formed just before the COVID-19 pandemic started. We had several clients that came to us and said, we really would like to extract some of the soft skill, behavioral skills that are being taught in the technical courses that you have. And we'd like a program dedicated to that. We recognize that we need leadership skills. Now, in the marketplace, there's so many leadership programs. It's really hard to ascertain when someone says, I want a leadership program, what it is that person would really like. We're not actually teaching leaders as a job title. We're teaching the elements that leaders need to have strengths in order to be successful in their career. So in doing that, we set up a tiered program so that people could easily see the pathway of what we wanted to achieve with the leadership program. So we start with the emerging leaders, which are really 6 foundational competencies, very closely aligned to what you just saw from the boot camp, in fact. So those we'll talk a little bit more about. But once these foundational skills are in place, we go to the next level, which was the strategic planning for emerging leaders, which is really creating an understanding of foundational strategic planning tools that leaders need. And when I say leaders, I mean even supervisors and team leaders and those type of positions. Very important to have these skills. And they're tools that you really have to have upward career movement over time. So between level 1 and level 2, you have those. And then we added a level 3 component, which is really, once you're in a leadership position, you're able to develop additional skills of a higher level that help you lead not only the organization, but the team and all the members that you're managing and leading to a better place in performing their job duties. Now, as I said, this program developed in late 2019. Really, it was designed as a face-to-face program when we brought it together. It was designed as a 5-day face-to-face program for several clients that asked us for this. But then what happened was the COVID era became, and so we revamped the format to become a virtual program, virtual delivery. And this particular program can be run two ways. It can be run over 5 straight days, or the way the public program is that we have set up, it's run 1 2-hour session each week for 7 weeks. There's also an optional office hours in that week for anyone to log in and speak directly with the instructor for clarification questions and chat time. So since then, it's been enormously successful. We've had more than 325 participants have participated virtually since we started the program. We've just concluded for 2021 our last public program, but as you'll see here soon, there's several public programs for the different tiers being offered in early 2022. I want to say that when I saw the results of the poll that Susan showed in the beginning, I want to say this. Recently, we just concluded one of the Emerging Leaders programs with several mature oil and gas operators, and we had some very intelligent people. We had people with multiple master's degrees and PhD degrees, and the one thing they all came back to say to us when we had our chat time and so forth and so on, they said, we know our geosciences, we know our petroleum engineering, we know this, but we've never had formalized soft skill or behavioral skill training. And what we've seen here and how that would be beneficial to us in doing our day-to-day job is just tremendous. And that you'll be able to see here in the results. So although we have folks out there with 20 and 30 years experience, I encourage you to look at this and see how it could be applicable to you as you manage teams and you do planning and you do all the other resources that maybe weren't focused on in your early career development and the early training that you received in order to move along in your career. We have people of all levels in these programs now, and I want to emphasize that based on what the poll said to me. So in here, these are the six. I will speak to these 6 quickly. What is leadership? And again, it's very important to know that there's a number of leadership styles. There is no one defining leadership style that every company uses. So we do spend some time on explaining, and so people have a foundational knowledge of kind of the history of leadership, some of the styles, and we give some examples. Communication, of course, appears in everyone's foundation list for what they need skills in. And communicating collaboratively, not just improving your own personal skills, but how you work in and interact with team members and other members of your organization is a critical skill. Emotional intelligence has become probably one of the most requested and asked about module. It's extremely important. Some of the gurus in emotional intelligence out there state that more than 50% of your job success and your career success are non-technical skills. You have to have a solid foundation in emotional intelligence skills, and this course allows you to really gather what the necessary elements are in understanding and applying emotional intelligence principles. Personal excellence and self-awareness are really interesting, and the way we teach it, where you get some of the real understanding of what you can do in your daily life and in your daily work basis on improving these areas of competence. Introducing the critical thinking. Many people think they know how the process works for critical thinking and decision making, but it's included in this 6 suite of competencies because it's so important to have. And finally, leading and managing change. This is a little bit different than just change management course. So you learn from a team leader, from a management perspective, leadership perspective of what you need to do in making sure the change and the changes in your organization that you're involved with succeed. So as I explained there, the public course is over 7 weeks. It takes only 2 hours, 3 hours of your weekly time, and it's hopefully flexible enough for you to start that. Now, in the 7th week of the Emerging Leaders Program, there is a team presentation. Around halfway through the program, we put the folks into teams organized by a pre-assessment that was provided when the course started. And in this particular instance, the teams have to have a presentation that summarizes what the 6 weeks of competency modules that we taught meant to them and apply it to a situation within their own company. And in this particular example, it's around the impact of leadership style. And the team that was in it was from Angola. And what you can see is they were very clever. And as a team, they took the styles of leadership that they learned about in one of the modules during the week and mapped it across the production and the increase in activities in the Angolan oil sector and applied it. And you can see they defined what their company's attributes were in the visionary stage, the affiliative stage, the commanding and pace-setting stage, and the democratic stage, which I'm happy to see that they ended up with. But and then what they did was in the last day, each member of the team presented one of the modules so that there was a collaboration, and all this was taking place remotely since everyone was not working from a single office. So that's the idea of the final week presentation. So we continue to track, and maybe we're going to have a paper 2 level coming out next year. We continue to gather data. It's very important to us to say that we're tracking the data. We're understanding the benefits of attending the course and what our clients have been learning. And we're able to actually respond to that question now that we have data in the most adequate way. Two participants, 2 comments that I want to highlight here is one comment: the blend that allows participants to relate their learning to the workplace and make presentations at the end of the training is a beneficial part of the training. And that is the action learning type activity that we designed into it, where they all work together at the end to summarize what they've learned. And down at the bottom, I particularly like this feedback from one of the participants. It was indeed a well thought out and excellent program. Its impact on my present daily life cannot be overemphasized. I am not just a changed person, I am a change agent. And then I think there's one more here I'd like to highlight, and that is number 4. I think it was down there, number 4. The next one, I think. Next slide. I think you just hit that one. This was now, the question was asking past participants about how they're going to apply, or if they've been able to apply any of the learning in their workday. The biggest achievement for me was a structured approach to implementing the topics that I have personally read about, but have not been formally trained in. I also know I have access to a good source for information, and I'm humbled to realize that I did not know as much as I thought I did. And that is, from an instructor's point of view, that's music to our ears, because we think we made a difference. So in the actual paper that Susan referred to that you could look at, but here's how we kind of displayed the data. We had typical questions using a tool like SurveyMonkey, which is what we're seeing here. And the first question, what is your overall evaluation of the program? And the program really got quite a strong response from the clients. And then the data that we were looking for was extracted by questions like this. Indicate your knowledge of understanding leadership before the program, and now how you feel about the level of knowledge now. And then we started to get the results. And we did this not only for the program in general, but we did it for each of the learning modules. One of the questions was the overall assessment, and the way we were able to collect the data, we created the 4 points of response for them, which was of no use, occasional use, using a combination daily, and quite valuable in my daily activities. And without exception, 100% of the responses fell into the triangle area of quite valuable or using a combination daily. And we were very happy to see that kind of cluster of the responses from the participants. So what we did was we took the 6 categories that we asked about, and we tabulated them. We tabulated them to rank them in their. Let me make sure. The graph represents the overall results to the impact of the program. And now we took each category and their responses and gave them a little bit of weighting so that we were able to apply it across the board to everything, so that we were able to extract out the improvement areas. And we did that. And what we want to really look at here is we were able to determine, based on the increasing value of their assessment, that they had an improvement result. This particular one is the change management module, and the gray area in the bar is where we want to look to see for improvement. And it could have been a negative, but in the way we tabulated the results, it came to a 1.76 improvement for the learning based on their responses to the questions that we applied to them. And you'll see this in the next slide, that we applied and the scores, the before scores, the after scores, and then we tabulated the improvement and placed it into the bar chart. And you can see enormous amount of improvement in all 6 modules from the results of the survey.
So to pick it up from here, we have the 2022 dates for the boot camp and IHRDC's Emerging Leader Program. You can take the boot camp in the public format in the spring or the fall of next year, and IHRDC looks like it has a first quarter, second quarter, third quarter schedule for next year. And of course, both of these courses can be scheduled in-house at a time of your own choosing.
Right. So at least on the IHRDC side, you can see while it's spread out, that's just 2 hours a week through those 2 ranges of date, 3 ranges of date programs. So this can fit right into your work schedule very nicely.
Yeah, we thought we should mention, you may wonder why SCA and IHRDC are presenting together today. We actually signed an agreement in 2019 to cross-market our products. We realized that we offer compatible services. IHRDC has e-learning, knowledge solutions, competency management, and instructional programs, and SCA is focused on technical training, either in person or virtually. And so we saw a great opportunity to work together and provide opportunities to showcase our products to each of our respective clients. And so that's why we're doing this webinar today. And we've written some papers together on some topics about.
Yeah, some of our clients like to link courses together, but have one provider, which is possible in this joint agreement where they're not looking for just one course, they're looking for a solution that might run six months, 12 months, and even 24 months. And so by being together, we can do this for the client.
Absolutely. So we'd like to thank all of our management teams, employees, and consultants who contributed to the work for this paper from both SCA and IHRDC. And we'd really like to thank the past participants of the bootcamp and IHRDC's Emerging Leader Program who responded to the surveys. We know that takes time out of your day to respond to a survey, and we were so pleased to get such a strong response from both groups. So I think without further ado, we're going to take some questions from the audience. I will remind you that you can put your questions in the question box because you are muted as a participant. And while we're waiting for some of you to type in your questions, I'm going to share some of the questions that we received when this the paper was presented in Dubai. So the first question was, is this based on a real framework of companies? Do you have any instrument of soft skills to measure, or do you do it in a free environment? The skills may depend on the type of company, so do you use a representative set of skills? Rob, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of touched on this when we first came in. I don't think anybody's list of top 20 competencies required for leadership or success in your job would not include communication, teamwork, change management, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and so forth. So the answer to the question is we selected 6 of what we think are universally accepted competencies that require people to have a good training and foundation in. So that's where they came from. And if you search out there and look for people on the fringes, they'll come up with, cultural competence. It might be on someone's list and so forth and so on. But we had to choose 6, and those are the ones that are in Emerging Leaders Level 1.
Right, and I would say that generally, as we designed the boot camp before it was first offered in 2008, we were focused on developing people as they were coming from academia into the corporate work environment. And so we were thinking about the experiences of young career professionals and working together, perhaps in cross-disciplinary teams. And so that was very much a part of it, was adapting it to various work environments. And of course, it may make a difference whether you're working for a large company or a small company. It may make a difference in what part of the world you're in. But in many cases, there are a lot of similarities. And we actually found that when groups were working together in our public offerings, they learned a lot from each other as well. So there's a lot to be said for having participants in these public offerings. So here's the next question that we received from the audience in Dubai. Have you found any correlation of retention based on performance in one of the case studies? And do you provide employees with development? Are they then more likely to succeed? Rob, what do you think about that one?
Well, that's a great question that was asked. It's a little bit asking about what's happening in the future from our perspective, because we've only been running the course for a little over 2 years. And what we intend to do is very similar to what you've done there with the boot camp, Susan, and trying to go to participants who have really been back in 1 year or 2 years on the job and ask them to assess their performance based on the 6 different areas that they learned about. But we've already shown in the comments some correlation of improvement with attending the training and them currently performing their jobs.
And I would add that on the topic of retention, some of our clients actually put a tether on attendance in the boot camp, sort of like what you might do with a company that pays for your MBA. they have a certain period of time in which they expect the employee to remain at the company. So it enhances retention because these people are being developed. And so it certainly can have a positive impact on retention. We have a question from the audience. Has there been any effort in the part of SCA and IHRDC to work with clients that already have some form of internal leadership training to help customize it and avoid any potential overlap? Rob, what do you think about that one?
You know, I'm working on 2 or 3 of those right now. And the clients, I've already touched on this before. What we're not focused on leadership as a position that sits 2 or 3 tiers up into the organization. And that's why a lot of this information, truthfully, I don't mean to be critical of clients, but the way they put it out there within their organization in their mission and vision statements and the way they're developing leaders, it's a little bit different than we're trying to be a little bit more broad-based. We're trying to go right for the foundational development. Any employee can use improvement in communication and emotional intelligence and working within teams and decision-making. So the answer is yes, but typically what clients are coming to us now with is, well, we have a group of entry-level people, we have a mid-management people, we have a group of executives, design us a leadership program, okay? And so, yes, the answer is we're working with clients because they need some help in understanding how to get the leadership skills into a format when you're teaching them that not only are they understand what's happening, but it's the retention piece and the application piece. How are they going to use that in their position? And that's one of the reasons we have the final project, the presentation projects about applying whatever they learned into a situation in their actual company. That's the requirement of the team presentation to conclude our program. So we're taking that, and they have to look at their own company and create this final presentation.
That's right. And I'll say from SCA's perspective that oftentimes when we're working with an in-house course, we are tailoring it to that client's style of making presentations and making decisions. And so when we do an in-house course, there's a great opportunity to look at the competency levels on the career ladder to make sure that we're developing for the right level of the audience. And we can interject the opportunity to have mentors come from the client, or perhaps the executives that watch the presentation at the end can come from the client. And so they can make sure they're emphasizing the things that are important in that company's culture. So I think there's a great opportunity to do that with in-house courses. We recently did the boot camp for a client where we did a good portion of it virtually. So that was our first experience to do this 12-week program where a large portion of the technical training was done virtually, and then the client decided they wanted to do the project part of the course in their office. And so it was kind of a hybrid delivery. But then at the very end, when they did the presentations in the virtual style. For those who didn't feel comfortable coming into the office, they could watch it online. So we're very flexible to adapt to the client's culture and the attributes that they exercise.
If I have time, I can mention one thing too. In the level 2 strategic leadership for emerging leaders that we offer, we actually assume that they've had some foundational competencies and they're learning these tools and resources. But what we do is we create a simulated business game for them in level 2, where together as a team, they have to use their leadership competencies to develop an asset. That asset may be a reservoir. It may be, in that particular, we give them 6 different international investment options that are energy related, from drilling in Peru to buying agriculture in Nigeria, and together they have to take that. But we work with clients to develop that scenario for their in-house needs.
Right. And the beauty of using those business cases is that you can take the experiences that one might acquire in, say, 3 or 4 years, and you can condense it down to a matter of days or weeks. So it's a great way for people to get experience in doing to practice the skill. I have another question that came from our audience in Dubai. Do you use this case of bootcamp as a recruitment instrument to demonstrate and measure future talent? Rob, what do you say about that?
Well, it's I don't have the answer exactly because our clients always request an evaluation of all the participants. Typically, not all of them do, but most of them. And we don't have access as a provider of what they do with that as far as recruiting and advancement and those type of things. But we think what we offer prepares people for certainly being considered because not all people have very specialized training and competency development for behavioral or soft skills as we offer right now. So I think it would be an asset that they could use in evaluation of people.
Absolutely. And I think when I got this question, I said, well, that would be a lot of commitment to actually have a 12-week program for recruitment, but you could probably do some portion of this if you wanted to use it as a measurement tool with candidates. Maybe you could do it with interns. Certainly, we have clients that have used the boot camp as part of a performance improvement plan when they may have a young geologist or engineer who is struggling to make the adjustment from academia to the professional world. They use the boot camp to help them, to really guide them in the skills that they need to develop and encourage them in that respect. So I think that's a common aspect, and our mentors that participate with the participants in the project phase are often asked for their feedback on how everyone applies themselves during the project phase.
I will say that we have developed an assessment that people are using as a recruitment tool based on our e-learning in petroleum engineering, geology, geosciences, 50-question assessment of typical information that we feel people should know, and it's been vetted by numerous people when they graduate from university with a particular degree. It's a very first-line kind of assessment tool. It's available electronically that we offer our clients, and it is based on our e-learning, our IPIMS e-learning in the technical side of the business, and anyone interested in that can certainly contact me.
The next question is, where do you find your mentors that participate in the programs? Rob, I'll let you go first.
So for the soft skills, which is the level 3, and which we offer mentoring, we have 5 or 6 people that would qualify to be mentors in the behavioral soft skills. Myself, I do the senior leaders, but we have other mentors in-house. Okay, we also, not much different, I think, than SCA, have a great reservoir of talent through our consultants and people that we've trusted over the years. For many years, we have relationships that go long way back, especially in they've been instructors and they've also been mentors and coaches. So one of the advantages of working with companies like SCA and IHRDC, we haven't just gotten into the business. We have many channels out there, and when the specific need comes, we typically can find a solution.
And I would agree. We typically have a small group of mentors that we go to for the boot camp because it is such a long program, a 6-week project. It does require a time commitment. So most of these mentors are consultants that are able to carve out that amount of time to be part of it. In some cases, they are instructors from our other programs. and I would say in most cases they've had industry experience, and I would say that would be the key aspect. We often have classes that are taught by professors from academia, but these skills that we're teaching in the boot camp really require knowledge of company culture and how to succeed when you're faced with tight deadlines and short time frames. And so the mentors that we use for this program are well versed in how to manage time and how to communicate and how to cut through to the essence of what's important. And I would think that over time, if we had a client that delivered the boot camp on a regular basis, they would want to incorporate some of their past participants into the program as mentors. So it's a chance for people to continue to develop their skills, not by just learning it, but actually by mentoring and teaching it. So it can be a circular approach there as well, particularly when you get a client that offers this year after year. So we're nearing the end of our time today. Rob, do you have any other comments before I make some closing comments?
Not other than stay tuned for the next paper, and we appreciate you coming in. And if there's any additional questions that you need or you think of after this webinar ends, I think we will be more than happy to respond.
Absolutely. So thanks for attending today's webinar. Later today, you will receive a link to a recording of the webinar, an evaluation form, and a link to the registration details for SCA's Geoscience Certification Program, which is offered April 18th through July 8th and September 26th through December 16th in 2022. And also IHRDC's Emerging Leader Program, which is offered in virtual mentored learning, January 24th through March 11th, April 4th through May 20th, and June 20th through August 5th, all in 2022. Thanks for joining us today. Goodbye. Bye, Rob.
Bye, everyone, and thank you.
Thanks.